Greetings. Greetings. Welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. Today is April 15th, 2026. For me, it's April 16th for Dr. Gajjar. This is episode 13 of 2026 of Conversation with Tony Mobley. This conversation uses TV broadcast software, mobiLearn, and Zoom. You can watch Conversation with Tony Mobley on our website, conversationwithtonymobley.com. We use this interactive chat 090, courtesy of Alex Lindsay, and we are going to get right to it. It's very early in the morning for Dr. Gajjar, so we're going to get started right away. First, let me say welcome and thank you so much for getting up early in the morning to be with me. I appreciate you being here. I'm excited about this conversation. I haven't been nervous in a while in having conversations with Tony Mobley, so I'm a little bit nervous. So I'm glad to have you, and we're going to get right into it. So what's new for you, Dr. Gajjar, since the last time you've been on?
Oh, much has changed. And good morning from Cape Town, South Africa, Tony. Thank you for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, I turned 75 this year, and my children tell me, we think you should now slow down or in fact retire. And I don't think I'm going to do very well in retirement at all. So I love what I do. And so fortunately, I'm on the precipice of growing the business, which was an accident by itself. Never got into business, just passion that became a business. So many changes, but absolutely everybody's being affected by the AI and what we do with AI as a tool. So that's probably the bane of my life at the moment, is to try and figure out how we can integrate that in what we do.
Very cool. We have a question from Austin, Texas. It's from Paul Terry Wahus. What is the gear and software setup for your cooking shows, past, present, and future?
Well, I think in the past we went really overboard with a cooking show here at home. So we had way too much gear. So we had 3 Blackmagic cameras, we had an iPhone, we had a teleprompter in the kitchen, we had the ATEM video switcher, we had a mix pre, we had a headset, and yes, and lots of lights. And I remember Clark helping us color our camera and setting our lights. I think he was in a little RV or a vehicle parked somewhere in a Walmart parking lot, and in the middle of the night, it's just amazing how technology worked. In the middle of the night, he and Kyle from Adelaide were busy setting up my cameras. So it was really fantastic. Cooking show probably took a leave, I would say. Didn't stop, has taken leave, mainly because the cook thought it was way too much work. So setting up the gear was a chore, because being at home, one had to build it, break it down. And in fact, I'm toying with the very idea of using Mimo Live again, or not again, but using Mimo Live as a production platform for the cooking show. And the cook said to me, I don't need 3 cameras. Just 1 camera is good enough. But you know, we from office hours, nothing is good enough.
You gotta have 2, at least 2. You gotta have at least 2.
Yeah, so we always strive for the best and excellence. So I think it's in our DNA by now, you know. So
And and I really want you to just really talk about why it's important to work on it. There are people who are listening,
yes,
and they are kind of the mind of good enough. Why do you want to go beyond good enough?
I think that folks do not appreciate that looking good and sounding good is very important for others to take you seriously when you participate in an online meeting. Especially if we get rid of the technology. That means we understand the basics of being present, understanding when to mute and unmute. Those are very basic. But looking good and sounding good means that folks focus on what you have to say rather than being distracted by other issues. Coincidentally, one of our large mobile operators is adopting our, what I would call almost the office hours style of connecting with the many, many stores that they have in the channel. And we had a dry run in our yesterday. It's the first time they're doing it. And I said, boy, oh boy, all of you need to attend my orientation meeting on looking good, sounding good before we go live tomorrow. So it's, I think it's kind of issues, simple issues. You can look good, sound good without spending any money at all. And probably number one is framing and then audio. You know, most people take the laptop computer as the device with which they connect and come online. And tendency is obviously to speak into the mic or lean down and listen to what's being said. So very basic, I tell them, use the headset that came with your phone. Just plug in the headset and you can hear in your ear. And the mic is much closer to your mouth, and so folks don't have much problem with audio. So I pay particular attention to the audio, the framing, and the lighting, and the very simple steps one takes to look good, sound good. You know, I do the medical event, and so even if there are 140 people who have registered for the event, I go through all of them. It's part of the T's and C's, in fact. They have to go through the orientation, otherwise they cannot get onto the session. So yeah, looking good, sounding good is really important.
Wow, that's amazing that you are pushing the envelope as far as those who want to participate in the medical events, that you actually go through each one of them and make sure that their audio and video is up to par. I mean, that's really that's dedication to your craft and to what you present as having your name attached to it. I mean,
Yes,
I think that's absolutely amazing.
Well, I can be sometimes a bit abrasive, and especially if a broadcaster is feeding your attendance in the meeting into a national television, for example, and watching, if folks watch you on a large screen, it just amplifies multiple times the look, and especially the audio and the look. So I've unsettled quite a few politicians who appeared on TV, and one particular, our very eminent minister of finance that was on television. And maybe in hindsight, I was a bit too aggressive with him on how he looked. Didn't speak to me for 2-3 weeks until he settled down and said, "Hey, Hasmukh, I was really upset with the way you dressed me down." And he then purchased a webcam, got a proper mic, bought a light, and spent wee little bit of time with me. Tell me, how do I look now? I said, wow, what a change. And in fact, he developed a reputation in the country saying, wow, you look really good when you're on the TV when they interview you. Yeah, so we have a little chuckle around that.
That's amazing. We have a question from the southern France, from Ken Jordan. His question is, you were Tony's very first guest. What's changed most about what you're doing since that first conversation?
Wow, a tidal change, Tony, probably more, I think we get into things sometimes because of curiosity, and in sort of the AV broadcasting or the area of communication, one is never satisfied with the last show. You always want to do better. You always want to make sure that things are a lot smoother. And we place this very high demand on ourselves. I guess that's why you earn this title of OG. There are a couple of, we need to have stars for OG. Oh, he's a 5-star OG, or he's a 3-star OG. So, but what has changed is really how this has impacted in what I can achieve, and more what I can contribute into the challenges we have in this country. So most people who come into my office, and the best thing I did since maybe probably even the second session I had with you, is to build a permanent studio. And in the studio, then using AI, I show the folks what can be achieved through this system that we've all built. And they're always dumbfounded. But they also realize and appreciate the scale of what can be achieved. So particularly in the health area, that's where I'm promoting this. But I'm slowly creeping into what I call almost public service. So we have, of course, like any other country, we have many, many municipalities. And the large transformation that we've had to go through in South Africa, upskilling the municipal managers on running their municipality has become quite important. And some of the decision makers have realized, wow, we can reach over 1,000 or 2,000 city managers in an hour without them leaving home or their office. And we can train them online. We can connect with them and bring different levels of expertise on maintenance, on financial management, on how to deliver better utilities to the community. So we're experimenting with that. So, Ken, what has changed is really constantly innovating in what we do, but also appreciating the scale of the impact we can have.
We're going to thank Ken Jordan and also Paul Terry Walhouse. And he's back again with, are you still a practicing MD, and what is mobiLearn?
I left medicine in '89 more by accident than design. I always say when I enrolled for my medical training, I was inherently probably a frustrated engineer. So I think the technology side of it really resonates with me. Um, so I probably got into business for causes, Tony, rather than economics. As you know, 89 was the era and the height of our previous system that we had, the political system. Uh, Kind of a fairly repressive and challenging system. And even at that stage, I realized the value of technology and how technology can assist in overcoming the challenges and trying to bridge. Um,
Can you talk a little bit about the things that you were involved in terms of
oh,
that particular
wow.
period?
You know, being involved wasn't voluntary. You just got involved. You know, I mean, because it was in your face. Even as a medical practitioner, uh, I there were many educational high schools and intermediary colleges around my practice. And of course, the youth are at the forefront of agitation and change and protests and so on. And whether I liked it or not, whether I intended or not, you were just swamped into that kind of uh, milieu where communities were being organized and communities had to vent their frustration. And of course, the authorities reacted rather aggressively and physically, which meant there were folks who had injuries, had exposed themselves to maybe tear gas and all those kind of things. And they always sought medical help. So whether I wanted or not, one was on the scene. And that's when I really kind of became very politicized, I guess, or being conscious of it. One could call it politicized. It's really the need to serve in the times of difficulty. And I remember one particular approach that the authorities took, which was to get into your practice and demand patient records, especially those who sought some help during a turmoil or turbulent protesting times. And I refused to share my records. I stood my ground. And even though they had legal powers to get what they wanted, and I think the word got around in the community that I did not share any information.
Yeah.
So they felt more comfortable seeking help because if you were injured in a protest and you sought medical help, the authorities would kind of track them down and arrest and all sorts of things that they did. So people were reluctant to seek medical help. But I, by accident rather than design, developed this reputation of being what I would call a safe doctor. And it became a little unsettling because people who had many more serious injuries would not seek hospital help, especially if they required some surgery. So with my friends who were surgeons and others, we would admit these folks middle of the evening, 2, 3 in the morning, and surreptitiously undertake the surgery that we had to, and then get them out again so that they would not be identified as a key participant in a bit of protesting or where it generated into a high level of violence.
You know, I'm in awe. I'm in awe because this, the courage that you're sharing right now. I think it's easy to to reflect on it now, but the fact that you were in the moment doing what you were doing at great risk, and we might have talked about this before, but I really want to say to you, thank you so much for your service. I mean, this is absolutely amazing.
No, I think again as the one engaged and one got sucked into it, whether you had intention or not, and the level and intensity of demanding change was such that you were just overcome and you did not think about safety at all. It was all about being part of the community, assisting and supporting the community as best as you can. In fact, I used technology at that time as well. I created a database of all the doctors in all the different areas that were considered to be safe. And these lists of doctors were distributed within community organizations, places that were a little bit more distant from Cape Town Center. And yes, so Tony, I don't think one thought about it to shall I or should I not get involved? Am I concerned about my safety, or am I concerned that I may be a target of some action or the other? You just did it. You just did it.
It almost sounds like a medical underground railroad.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The idea that you and your fellow medical doctors made the decision that you were going to treat people who were responding to discrimination and racism, and you were willing to do it at great risk, and you made the decision that you were going to do it no matter what. I mean, I am in awe, and I'm going to be transparent and say that I think that this particular story, I know we can talk about technology all night long.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter that this conversation that we have right now, I really think more people need to hear it. I really do think more people need to hear it. And the other thing that, as far as the technology part of it is that you are making a decision about how important it is to represent individuals in quality, and at the same time you've shared the foundation for a lot of what you're doing by being able to step out. I don't want to say faith, but in your concern for your fellow human.
Yeah, I think that probably it kind of sets your DNA sets the scene on how you end up doing what you do, and taking up medicine was not a calculated process of deciding what career am I going to pursue. it was just natural, so one has the urge to not just sit back and either criticize or complain about what's happening around you, whether it's economic or political or any other reason. And I've always believed in, well, let's get off our butt and get involved. Let's see how we can make a difference. So,
you've talked about you talked about it being in your face, but before it got into your face, there had to be something that you pulled from that's earlier, whether it's relationship with your parents or the fact that you saw this injustice going on for so long. What is the foundation for being able to arrive at the moment and do what you did in the moment? Can you talk about that?
I think that the apartheid system was pervasive. And when I say it's in your face, it's really affected every aspect of your life. Let me give you an anecdotal story. There are beautiful parks around where I live, and I've taken up running. And I have to make this very terrible statement that I got twice chased by dogs who tried to nip at my ankle.
Wow.
And I'm very, very anxious about dogs around me. And that stems from the way we were brought up, because when I used to walk to school from home, you passed all these other homes of folks who live on the other side of the railway line. And they would chide these dogs to attack you while you're walking to school. So there was a particular path that I had to traverse where I knew that I had to run like hell to get away from people's dogs. And it's something I can't get rid of. It's in my DNA. So those are the things. It's a very simple anecdotal, but many, many others which were, in hindsight, extremely abusive and damaging, shaped what you are, and inherently gets you to look at life the way it is. And obviously my children haven't had experienced that. They don't know the difference. And unfortunately, my generation and our parents were a little bit more docile as to agitation and demanding change. My generation became much more involved in that. And whether we like it or not, we are shaped to see my country in color. And it's unfortunate that and I have to fight myself to say, not everyone is still displays great deal of racism or prejudice. I give you an example, Tony. I was watching cricket. I know cricket is not very popular in the USA, but I was watching cricket and my daughter was in the lounge, and I said, "Oh wow, who is that new black player playing for South Africa?" And my daughter turned around, "Why do you always have to pick on color? Just say who's the new player. Why do you see color? And unfortunately, we have been chiseled that way.
Yeah, I I draw on my own experience. One of the things that happened when I was a very young child, I want to say I grew up in the northeast of the United States in the New York area, and my father was originally from South Georgia, and most of his life he lived in Orlando, Florida, way before Disney World was nothing but orange groves.
Hmm.
And we would go we'd drive to from New Jersey to Florida every summer for 2 weeks. We go, and I remember very distinctly every single time. We couldn't stay at a hotel, so we had to pull off and be on the side of the road and use the bathroom and everything on the side of the road. And if you didn't know somebody that was along the way, you were just out of luck. And I remember very distinctly one of the times that we were driving, um, my father was stopped, and he was taken into custody, and the only reason something it happened in Georgia, in South Georgia, and the only reason that he was able to survive that time was that my uncle was in the military in the Air Force, and he wired money and sort of made a big stink about his brother being in jail in Georgia. And if it had not been for that, my father probably would not have made it out of Georgia. So I understand very very clearly about what you're talking about, and the fact of things sort of being in your face. Um, I relate to it. I I could talk about my own experience, and a lot of people think that those times have passed, but unfortunately, it's sort of a resurrection of those kinds of times
Yeah,
going on now,
yeah,
and, and people don't want to talk about it, and they want to sort of put their heads in the sand, so to speak. But it's really scary for me because I can still feel those things, and um, I guess I have sort of those moments that you have in terms of thinking about those dogs.
mm,
I still sort of feel some of those kind of things. Let's move on, and we'll probably get back to the technology unless someone asks a question related to
yes.
the things that we've talked about. Um, so Ken Jordan is back. You're a doctor who became a tech executive, who became a social entrepreneur. At which point did you know this was the work you were supposed to be doing?
Well, I traversed my life not having to decide on choices. Again, I alluded to the fact that I got into business not for economics, but how business could contribute and make a change in these struggle years and continue up to now. You know, the past does inform the present. And what you see so often, one says, forget the past, but the past is the present. I think that I've probably been naturally curious about technology, and I dive deep into whatever I am busy with, whether it's the tools around that we use every day around Zoom, whether it's Mimo Live or Zoom ISO, all these tools that we use in our production. And one dives deep to better leverage how technology can help. So to answer Ken's question, most of my journey in life was triggered by events, and I've particularly realized after a while that I'm a born server, if that's how I would. I'm a sucker to help and assist, and but I believe in life that if you give and you assist without expecting anything, life has a way of turning the wheel, and sometimes it comes back with great interest. So it happens within our community. You know, you assist somebody with some issue or another, and who knows, down the line, they have the opportunity to assist you, or they have an impact or affect your life. And Ken Jordan is a classic example of that. You know, when Ken participated within the community, it wasn't very easy at the initial stages, and one got involved. One tried to smooth things out, and Ken has now become a great friend of mine. And Ken is teaching me AI, believe it or not. He's just incredulous. He's just incredulous. So Ken has helped me with my websites, and I think he was on your show not long ago, talking about how AI is helping what he does, and oh boy, did I get sucked into it! I wish we had.
He shared with me. He shared with me that you guys have been having conversations about AI, and I'm looking forward to. We're doing some amazing things too as well, and I believe he's going to be back with me on the 29th of April, and I'm working on a special product that I'm going to share in that conversation. I want to thank Ken and Paul Wahoos for their questions. Paul is back again. He said, what is the key to your business success, and do you have stories about your big wins?
Oh yeah, I think maybe I have OCD. Whatever we do, we want to do well. It's and not all our efforts are. My perspective is that just wasn't good enough. You can do better than that. And therefore, whether it was in my medical practice or when I stumbled into business, one was driven by commitment and passion. And so there's commitment, there's passion, and there's curiosity. The kind of three triangulation that drive most of things that I've undertaken. So I'm very passionate about wherever I find myself in the cycle of my life. So I think the big wins became naturally, not something that I pursued. I think I am comfortable and happy that I've been able to contribute to the development both in our country but within business itself, where fortunately I've been able to inspire a number of emerging folks to invest in technology, to understand technology, and to become successful entrepreneurs. And I know many folks are doing extremely well, not just in South Africa, but internationally. So when I got into tech, we were partners for WordPerfect, and we were obliged to provide online help. So I had to establish a call center. And I hired my first 20 folks who were manning the call center, had never ever seen a computer in their life.
A lot of young people are not going to know what WordPerfect is. Can you just share briefly about that?
WordPerfect was the premier word processing app in sort of the 80s, and it was extremely dominant during the era of DOS, disk operating system, and before Windows became a new user interface. So WordPerfect from Utah played a significant role in my life. And so I think that as we move, if we think about how we created documents and used word processors, even word processing was seen as phenomenal compared to a typewriter or getting a fax and all that kind of stuff. So one has seen a lot of changes. But I think that technology has a significant role to play in the evolution of just about everything we do. And whether we like it or not, we have to get involved in technology. And therefore, my drive is to teach people how to harness technology so that they can either improve their lives, improve their productivity, or it become an economic benefit. And that has had large-scale impact with businesses and social bodies that have learned how to harness technology in delivering what they do.
Yeah.
You know, Tony, my children always say, "Dad, you got to write a book. You got so many narratives."
Yes,
And,
I agree.
and funny enough, it's my grandchildren who are more interested than my children themselves. Because sometimes they've heard the story, but the grandchildren are fascinated. And so I decided I'm going to use technology. So instead of writing a book, I'm capturing little sessions on video. And at my 75th get-together, my children came from England to be with us. And I quickly prepared a short video. And I said, "You've been demanding that I write a book. Here's my first prologue of my book. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to talk. And this is my sharing of my stories with my great-grandchildren one day, not just my grandchildren."
Wow.
So again, I'm using technology, Tony, to pass on the legacy.
That brings us right to the question that Guy Cochran from Seattle is asking. He says, "What do you think you'll be remembered most for?"
Wow. That's a very deep question. You know, it's, I think the person who volunteered and instinctively felt the need to help, the need to be conscious about people's circumstances, people's challenges, and therefore whether I think about it, but involuntary, I do that. And even in business, it doesn't have to be just social work. So when you deal with a client, for me, it's not just a transaction. It's a opportunity to empower somebody. So, and clearly, as you get older, you realize the value of wisdom. You know, wisdom doesn't just descend on you one day and you are perceived as a wise individual. So we've accumulated much experience. And so I guess, Guy, I'll be hopefully recognized as a wise individual who had an impact on many other people's lives.
I just want to add to Guy's question from this point of view. First, I want to say thank you for being who you are. I normally say that at the end of the conversation that I have with people. But I want to say thank you for who you are, because you have been one of the individuals who has encouraged me to want to do the very best that I can when I'm on a video call or a stream or a show or whatever I'm on. And I thank you for that. And not only do I thank you for that, I thank you, and I think it's safe for me to say now it's been about 4 years since you gifted me my first pair of in-ear monitors. And the reason why I want to lift it up is because, and I know you did not want that shared, but the reason why I wanted to share that is because not only did you gift me my first pair of in-ear monitors, but you gifted me some that were so thin that you could not tell that I had them in my ears. And what that said to me was, you thought it was important enough that I had those and looked as good as I possibly could. So again, I want to say thank you and forgive me for sharing what you asked me not to share.
Well, there's a little story you may not know about, but you know, one of the folks in the community in office hours is Mickey Makacher, and Mickey has helped me considerably the way you feel I've assisted you. So I think that's what I mean by turning the wheel. You know, Mickey turned the wheel for me, the way he assisted me, and he actually suggested those in-ear monitors, the Bubble Bee.
Wow.
And I was so impressed. And I heard a conversation, I think, with Tlalak and somebody else about how can we improve Tony's audio setup. And I said, he needs Bubble Bee. So let's get him a Bubble Bee. And that's really how it happened, Tony. I think you have made such tremendous strides in terms of your online participation that instinctively, it's not even a question. One wants to assist, one wants to contribute. And that was a very tiny contribution, Tony. So,
well, I thank you. I thank you. I appreciate you. We have a few more questions. We're going to try to get to them. We've been granted a little bit of extra time by our team on the back end, and we appreciate that. Ken Jordan, who is actually from Wexford, Ireland, who is there and not southern France. Is there anything the rest of the world could learn from how Africa has approached mobile first education rather than the other way around? Wow, that's big.
Yeah, no, I think funny how technology can sometimes assist in leapfrogging what we have. So most of Africa did not have the infrastructure in fixed line communication. You know, because of the vast terrain and economic reasons and lots of other reasons why communications was not as pervasive as it's today. So the mobile device allowed many countries in Africa to participate in a global economy and a global communication. So certainly the evolution from fixed to mobile was revolutionary. In my own country, there are more mobile devices than the population. So we have 58 million smartphone devices in the country. And it's just amazing what that's done. It's really amazing.
I want to dig in a little bit deeper in terms of that mobile first concept. And mobiLearn does sort of, part of the reason that mobiLearn exists is because you wanted to use the infrastructure of the mobile devices. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you know, one of my nephews from Palo Alto was in South Africa, and he says, "Uncle, what do you do?" So I said, "Well, I create videos to teach people how to be smart with their smartphones." He said, "But surely everybody knows how to use a smartphone." I said, "Really not, you know." And so I realized that teaching people very simple, basic on how they could use the smartphone as a tool was something that grabbed my attention as well. So I still continue to do that. But the youth obviously are smarter, and they've taken to tech very easily. But it's the previous generations, more the working class. And if they understand the value of a smartphone, they can better support their family. I would say that probably 70 to 80% of a smart device in homes is smartphones. And that's probably the only internet connectivity tool that probably 60-70% of the population have. And so I'm trying to encourage folks to leverage the smartphone not just as a consumption device, but as a productivity device. And so getting folks to not just watch videos and entertainment on their phones, but how can they leverage phones to learn the pervasive content that's online. Simple things like not having to line up in front of a bank, but rather use the banking app to manage your transactions. Trying to figure out how to find an address, exchange location pins with each other so that you can get to your destination. So these are simple interventions that we need to make folks aware. So I'm quite passionate that people gain the optimal amount from their investment. You know, it's always been a thing about technology that we use 20% of the potential of either the software or the device. That's how I grew up. Is you only use 20% of it. And that's very true about smartphones as well. So if folks can understand and optimize it, it would just help them economically and from a self-growth point of view.
One of the things I try to do when I'm talking to people about technology is I try to get them to think of the smartphone differently and to think about it as a pocket computer as opposed to
exactly
it just being a phone, because there are so many different things that you can do with that pocket computer that you hadn't thought about. And so we have another question from Paul Terry Wahus. What is the tech scene in South Africa like, and what is the tech center metro area?
Good question. I think South Africa is quite savvy in tech. You know, lots of development has taken place. I didn't realize that the genesis of AWS was in Cape Town. So a bunch of folks in Cape Town had started off AWS. And in fact, from an Amazon point of view, Cape Town is quite a precious and sentimental destination. The cybersecurity company Mimecast was again evolved out of South Africa. So we had this paradox of cutting edge development of technology and then a large component that are not engaged in technically earlier at all. So South Africa is very much at the forefront of the tech revolution. But I think I try to bridge that gap between those who are at the bleeding edge and those who are trying to catch up. And so I'm extremely concerned about AI tools and how those people need to be taught how they can be helpful and be productive. And I'm learning a lot from Ken and others of how to use AI. And if I can teach people how to use AI tools, so it's now gone beyond just the device or the handset. So to answer Paul, we very much tech savvy as anywhere else.
I'm just curious. The digital divide is still a very real thing here in the United States. Is it still an issue in Africa, as far as you know?
It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. You know, I said earlier, the past informs the present. So those who do well entrepreneurially and are successful is largely individuals who have the skill, who have access to capital, and have the networks. Those are the folks who are successful in either implementing technology or become entrepreneurs within technology. And unfortunately, the past does dictate which groups of folks have all three to become successful.
Yeah.
So I think the digital divide is extremely challenging because those who were left behind are always trying to catch up, and the things that they get involved in has already receded. And those who are in front, so the kind of revolutionary way it's evolving, it actually increases the gap, the digital divide. It's not making it any narrower. And I think that even applies at nation state.
Wow. We're going to stop. I don't want to, but but we need to stop. So I'm going to just share our last question. And for those questions that did not get answered tonight, we want to say thank you so much for all of those people who asked questions that we were unfortunately not able to get to. Our time has expired. So we just want to say, you're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
I think that we are transitioning through a very difficult period globally, you know, and we should not lose faith. We should continue to remain strong and positive and ensure that those who are in need around us, that we make our contribution to not lose faith or confidence in wherever we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Gajjar. I really appreciate you being here with me. And I know this is, Thursday morning for you already. But you got to come back, and we're going to try to get to maybe answer some of those questions that we did not get to. And again, thank you again. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by Clarlock Lopez Waterman. Our current team is Laura Thompson, Zachary Sorensen, Mickey McAture. Thank you, sir, and thank you, team. Thank you, Mimo Live and Zoom, for making this broadcast possible. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new episodes and great conversations on Conversations with Tony Mobley. When you have time, we ask that you go back and take a look at our nearly 200 episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. And I'm going to ask those people who are watching this live conversation tonight, please share this conversation with family and friends. Please do that. I think some things have been shared that are important. Again, we want to say thank you to Dr. Hasmukh Gajjar. Thank you for being a part of our conversation today, for doing the work that you have done and are doing, and for being the person who you are. Thank you, sir. Conversation with Tony Mobley next week. We're going to have a free show update with Gary B. Jr. And if you don't know what Free Show is a presentation software that is used primarily, it's a free platform that's primarily being used in houses of worship. Please feel free to support Conversation with Tony Mobley by volunteering your time or donating to keep Conversation with Tony Mobley running. You can donate on our website. We ask that on YouTube that you please like, subscribe, and comment. We want to keep getting better. Thank you so much. We're going to say good night to everyone. Take care. See you soon. Good night.